Chapter 25. Gary got out of his hospital bed. The burns on his leg weren't as bad as he first feared. A clean-up and a dressing later, he was ready to be discharged with a prescription for some strong painkillers in case it flared up again. Gary was already sure that he wouldn't be taking them. He had a toothache a decade or so earlier, pacing up and down with the pain. When he was given the painkillers, he took them immediately to try to soothe the pain. They did. He slept for 27 hours straight and vowed never to take anything stronger than paracetamol again. Picking up his jacket, Gary walked up and down, testing the strength in his leg, while waiting for the prescription. As he was given the piece of paper, the nurse said to him, "Stay safe and sound." And his mind went to the security guard, who had shown him the CCTV the day before. Gary's sense of direction wasn't great. Agnes, his new beau, always mocked him for his sense of place in the world. She would sit and ask him in their front room to point in the direction of the sea, of the town centre, of Sunderland, and he always got it wrong. The maze of corridors in a hospital weren't going to make his task any easier, but he felt he had time on his hands, so walked up and down, looking for the room with "Control Room" written on the door. Around 10 minutes later, he was there, through a case of perseverance rather than having any sense of where he was. Knock, knock. "Hello?" The voice from behind the door answered. "It's Detective Hole. I was here with you last night, looking at the CCTV. I have a couple of questions, if I can." Silence. Then, around 20 seconds later, the door opened slowly, the huge security guard peering through the gap, like he could hide his huge frame in the space. "How can I help?" he asked, without opening the door more than an inch or two. "I have a few questions to ask about the images we looked at yesterday. Can I come in?" "S'pose," the security guard answered, opening the door fully, looking both ways along the corridor before he followed Gary inside. "What questions?" the security guard asked, getting down to business. "Sorry," Gary replied. "You said you had a few questions. What are they? I'm a busy man." Gary remembered the way the conversation went the first time with the huge guard. He was used to having the upper hand in any conversation because his size put him on the front foot. Gary was happy to play subordinate. All he wanted was some information. The chat he'd had with Ian Mallon had piqued his interest. He wanted to explore more. "The CCTV images here, where are they stored?" Gary inquired. "Hard disk." "So, on the system itself, not the cloud?" Gary asked, having done some research on his mobile phone while he was sat waiting in his hospital bed. The nurse had told him to switch it off because it interfered with the electronics in the hospital. He didn't believe her, so continued. It seemed that CCTV images saved onto a hard disk had two issues. Firstly, they would automatically wipe after a certain period of time. Secondly, that they were much easier to manipulate. Gary didn't believe that there was time to mess around with the images between Marcus Bright disappearing and him witnessing the tapes, but he had to cover all bases. "On the system, it's on a month loop. Look at the 15th and it will show the most recent 15th of a month. Then on the 15th of the next month, it gets wiped over. It goes to stand that if something over a month old, it's not that important. So, the only dates that last longer than a month are the 30th of January, 31st of May, August, and October. Make sense?" Gary nodded. He was interested in the way the systems worked as much as asking questions about the case. "And who has access to this?" "There's a team of 6 in security. All of us could get hold of this if we needed to, and we're all trained on how to manipulate the system to get the information we need." "And could these images be doctored?" "You mean the images I showed you yesterday?" "No, I'm talking theoretically. Could any of the images you guys have be manipulated to show someone there who wasn't, or to remove someone who was?
I suppose if you have enough time and enough processing power, you would get the best results going down to the pixel level and working one by one. But that could take weeks of work to remove someone from even just a minute of footage. Do you know how long it takes them to put together a minute of an animation movie?
No, Gary replied.
A week.
What?
Yep, a week plus to render 1 minute of animation, and that's starting from scratch, not trying to manipulate images that already exist. I think it would take you months. Why, do you ask?
You know, a little professional interest.
And do you think this might have happened with the images I showed you yesterday?
Not now, I don't.
But that's changing images. What if the CCTV footage I showed you had been filmed at an earlier date, and that's what I showed you? What if it was staged, so that it looks like what you wanted to see?
And might it have been?
Do you know what? I've wondered that myself for some time. There was one guy who worked here a while back, put everyone's back up most of the time. He knew some technical stuff that wasn't strictly legal, and one of the things he always asked about during his training was how to change the date and time on the footage. Nobody ever asks that.
And does he still work here?
No. Left a while back under a bit of a cloud. I reported him for fiddling with CCTV images. I was never sure what he was up to at the best of times. At the worst of times, he looked like he was trying to record scenes. I didn't know if he was secretly making a movie with our equipment. I keep an eye on YouTube every now and again, but I've never seen anything using our images. The day it happens, I'll be the one who can say, I told you so.
And I don't suppose you remember his name, can you?
Yes. It was Marcus Bright.